What is up, guys? Thanks for tuning in to the next episode of the Three Peaks Fitness Podcast. I'm Coach Mark.
I'm Coach Lynette.
And today we are going to be talking about post-pandemic malaise, something that's very serious. It's something that a lot of people don't, it's not really talked about, to be honest with you, but It's really impactful. It's impacted everybody.
Yep.
Everybody in a really, really bad way. We're all feeling it. And this podcast is probably going to, a few light bulbs are going to go off listening to this one.
Yeah. And it will start a little bit like, a little sad, but we were going to tell you what to do about it, and it will have a happy ending.
Yeah.
We promise.
So what is post-pandemic malaise? As you can probably guess, it's just an overall feeling of exhaustion or burnout as a result of the traumatic experience that we all just went through and kind of still are, sort of. Not as badly, but, it's not officially over. But, that traumatic experience we all went through with COVID, starting in 2020 and everything shutting down and the world going crazy. And, now that just because everything is opened up and we are, quote unquote, back to normal, it doesn't mean that our brains, our bodies, our physiology has recovered from what we just went through for 2 years.
Yeah, I think we have yet to pay the emotional price for what we've been through. Like, this is the beginning of recovery from the whole thing. In fact, there's a new term coming up. So it used to, FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. Now there's FONO, fear of normal.
Yeah.
People don't want to leave their COVID caves and go back. They don't want to. There is a percentage of the population that does not want to return, like getting online and looking at plane tickets to visit their parents makes them nervous. Like, oh, I can't get on a plane, or just trying to make appointments to go be with friends, or, it's just easier to just stay home. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are doing that.
That's really interesting. And we'll kind of talk about this more later in the podcast, but I wonder if that has something to do with almost like it's a trauma response.
Yes, it is.
Right? Because we were so afraid, like going outside could kill you. Doing anything could kill you. Right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like almost like someone who has, PTSD sort of in a way. It's like, oh, you still have that gut response is, that makes me uncomfortable. Like doing things makes me uncomfortable.
There are, I know people that are still like, oh, I don't feel safe, going to that place. I'm just not ready yet. I'm still worried about COVID. And so some of us, some people have moved on, they're moving on, but I think there's plenty of people that are still mentally stuck in the pandemic.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So what I did is I kind of, when we were researching this, I think I narrowed it down to three things that I thought were probably the primary contributors to this post-pandemic malaise that we're all experiencing. And so for me, the three things that I thought were number one, the constant online living. Mm-hmm. Number two, feelings of isolation and a lack of time outdoors. And then number three, the micro traumas and insecurities of living through a pandemic. So those were the big three that I felt like kind of encapsulated everything that we're experiencing. So the constant online living one is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
As I was doing those research. So our brains, they only have a limited mental bandwidth to work with at any given time, right? So the human brain works like way slower than the supercomputers we have now, right? So the mental bandwidth for your brain is about 120 bits per second.
Okay.
And so for those of you listening, just for reference, Lynette and I having this conversation, or you having a one-on-one conversation with someone, eats up about 60 bits per second. So literally half, right? Half of your mental bandwidth is taken up just by talking one-on-one with someone.
Okay.
Right? Now, when everything shut down and moved online and we started having Zoom meetings, right? Now you have a screen of 5, 10, 15, who knows how many people that you're having to process all at the same time. This is different than when you're in person, even if the meeting consists of 10 people, because it's not 10 people doing their own thing while trying to contribute to a meeting, right? Everyone in a room is on the same page, and there's only one person, generally one person talking at a time, and everyone's kind of focused on them. Whereas on Zoom, there are things like the delays, the lag, like someone might be talking and then you don't have the same context cues that you would have, the nonverbals. So your brain is actually having to work harder to process 10 to 15 virtual interactions.
All those little squares.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's why so many people, after a day full of Zoom meetings where you would think, oh, I just sat at a computer and just looked all day. Why am I so tired? Well, that's why. Is because your brain uses a lot of energy.
It does.
And it's using, you were basically like overworking your computer for 8 hours.
Wow.
Right? So it's no wonder at the end of the day, you're just stressed and exhausted and you don't feel like doing anything.
Yeah. I feel that after one Zoom meeting.
I know, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then additionally, on top of all that, your brain is basically playing tug of war because you're on your computer, right? And what else do we do on our computer? We check social media. We read blogs. We check, the ESPN to check the sports. We're all these things we'd also normally do on the computer. Our brains are now having to resist the temptation, you could say, of multitasking.
Okay, so you're just like, no, I'm not going to check my email. I'm going to pay attention to the meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to stay engaged.
Which then also, takes away from your mental bandwidth. So basically, your brain is just exhausted. Like you're exhausting your brain, and you're just stuck inside, and you don't have we didn't really have the same opportunities to recover and rejuvenate our brain and help it reset because of number two, right? Like the feelings of isolation and lack of outdoor time.
Yeah.
That was definitely a big one. I mean, we were stuck inside for so long, like day in and day out, especially early on when everything was shut down. Even like parks, right? Even like outdoor places that initially where we lived where you weren't allowed to go there.
Yeah, they roped off the playground.
Yeah, yeah. So you couldn't do anything. And so you're stuck inside. And so an area of your life that was previously designated as, where you relax, right? This is my safe place. This is where I relax. Your home, right? This is just, if you kick my feet up, whatever, now turned into everything.
Yeah.
It turned into your gym. It turned into where you work. It turned into, school. It turned into everything was taking place there. Yeah. And the brain doesn't like that.
No.
The brain likes to fit things into boxes.
Right. You need to physically they tell you don't use screens in bed because crawling into bed should be a cue for the brain shutting off. But now you've done that to your whole house where you're like, your brain's like, can I relax here? Can I relax it? No.
Right.
Can't.
Right.
You don't have that cue.
Yeah. I mean, especially as time, that's a great point because especially as time went on when, if you have a laptop like most people do nowadays, right, you're just, I think I'm going to just do work in the living room today or, today is at the kitchen table, or maybe it's maybe it is I'm working in bed today because, I don't have any Zoom meetings. I just check my email, so you're messing with like the area, the boundary that your brain has for that designated location.
Take all the boundaries out.
And then additionally, we just spent far less time outdoors. We were just stuck inside. And so fun fact, not so fun fact, indoor air pollution, according to the World Health Organization, kills about 4.3 million people per year. Globally.
I'm going to go home and open my windows.
Yeah. So, this is just the dust, the mold, just the lack of fresh air that we are getting.
Okay.
I don't know. I didn't look into it too much. I don't know if it's how that 4.3 million is distributed. I don't know how much of that comes from America. But the fact remains, if we're inside, we're not getting fresh air and that sort of thing, it's bad for our health. Also because of the lack of sunlight.
Yeah.
Right? So that lack of vitamin D absolutely wrecks your immune system.
Yeah.
It kills it. If you do not get out in the sun, like your immune system just is like non-existent.
Wow.
And it also leads to things like depression.
Yeah.
Right? The lack of vitamin D, lack of sunlight, like just being stuck inside leads to things like depression, which as we know, leads to you being less active and wanting to, self-medicate with snacks and food and
Oh, yeah.
alcohol,
Oh, stuck inside with the kitchen. Like
With the kitchen.
oh my gosh.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
overeating during the pandemic.
Oh, it was terrible. It was terrible. And then it becomes just like a cycle, right? It's like
Yeah.
you gain weight. Oh man, I gained weight. Now I'm more depressed. Let me go eat more to help my feel. It's just like this cycle of just messiness.
Or people wanting to bake more, right?
Bake more, yeah.
Sometimes it was a happy thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was a sad thing, just whatever. Or boredom.
yeah.
Boredom.
Oh.
Eating for entertainment.
Yep. Hey, I'll tell you what. The first 2 weeks of the pandemic, when everything, it felt like a vacation. You know what I mean? It was like, yeah, let's do this. Let's try this recipe. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do that. Yeah, but then,
You're like,
you can
okay, I've had enough of this.
Yeah, you can only bake so many brownies before you're like, all right.
Yeah. Or, I'm learning to make homemade bread.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a big
definitely.
one, yeah.
So, yeah, the psychological things that happened to us all, we were told we were not essential and that you can't fix this.
Yeah.
And then constantly, every day, we're checking what are the numbers? What are the numbers? What are the numbers? And we're told, you can't fix this. And just that constant state of insecurity and bad news all day long and isolation from other people. And that's basically what happens to POW prisoners. They're told all day long, well, everyone's dead. You're stuck in here. You can't do anything and you're isolated. So I think we have not really recognized the pandemic as the traumatic event that it was. It was a collective trauma that
Yeah.
everyone experienced together. But the good news is you can recover and be even better than you were before the trauma if you recognize it. First, you have to recognize it. Yes, that was trauma, and then take the steps to recover from it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely a traumatic experience. I think everyone was just so eager to move on, and get back to
Yeah.
quote unquote normal that we just kind of left it and are just like, okay, everything's fine now.
Right.
You can say that all you want, but your body,
No.
that's not how your body feels.
No, our brains are still trying to recover
Yeah.
from all of that.
Yeah, for sure. So,
All of it.
and speaking of traumas, so micro traumas and insecurities living through the pandemic. I mean, if you think about it, so number 2 on, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is safety.
Yeah.
And we did not have that
No.
for the better part of 2 years. I mean, there was, especially early on, it was like, oh my gosh, if you go out, don't go outside or you'll die. Right? It's kind of like the message, like if you do anything, you could die.
I remember going grocery shopping was so stressful. I was so keyed up. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I've got my mask, I've got my gloves,
Yeah.
I've got my hand sanitizer.
They had the arrows. Remember that? Remember they had the arrows on the floor.
Stay 6 feet
Yeah.
away from everybody. And then you go home and you're like trying to wipe everything down.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was terrible.
Yeah. So I mean, think about it, right? Like if you go a year, 2 years with just the constant threat of death looming over you at any given moment,
Right.
This invisible foe that could kill you at any second, right? Yeah, that's going to cause a little bit of PTSD. You know what I mean? It's definitely going to
Yeah.
to impact you. And so there were little T traumas, like micro traumas, and
Yeah.
big T traumas.
Yeah.
We all of us experienced
Yeah.
micro traumas in the form of like checking the
Yeah.
how many deaths were there today, oh geez, or
Yeah.
just like I was talking about, the fact that you could get sick at any moment. And then a lot of us did experience big T traumas, right? Macro traumas, and like we had friends or
Everyone
family
knows
or,
someone that died from COVID.
yeah, right.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we experienced both of those. And again, over just such a long period of time. I mean, there were people too, like early on. I mean, think about people like when the hospitals weren't letting anyone in,
Yeah.
right? And so there were babies that were born and the father or no family, no one could be there with the mom. So the
that's
mother had
right.
to go through childbirth like by herself with
Yeah.
doctors that were fully, like that's a traumatic experience,
Yeah.
So all of these things happened,
Yeah.
and we just haven't really dealt with it.
We
haven't
don't
talked about
think, it's not being talked about, and people aren't fully aware of it.
Yeah.
They just have a vague sense of poor memory, low energy, not really.
Motivation.
yeah, not really motivated to go to the gym, not motivated, canceling appointments, just, oh, I'm not feeling up to it. So they don't really, oh, they think, oh, I'm functioning, I'm going to work, I'm doing things, but they don't realize that no, you are still recovering. You have not recovered from the
Right.
pandemic because you're not where you were before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And people are just they don't recognize that because they're like, well, it was no big deal. Like, no one in my immediate family was affected. I didn't get a serious case of COVID.
Right.
So no one is really recognizing it for what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the first step. You got to recognize, I've been through trauma. Now what do I do?
Yeah. And acknowledge it. Yeah. And that's a great point. I mean, we're no psychologists or anything like that,
Right.
but I think probably just based on the research that we were doing,
Yeah.
if you kind of feel like you almost have sort of like you're in just kind of this like semi-depressive state where you're just kind of like you're just having a hard time doing it, like your energy's not there and you're just kind of flat,
Yeah.
right, and you can't seem to shake it. That's
Yeah.
that could definitely be that post-pandemic malaise that you're experiencing, where you're just
When
burnt out.
there's two different ways. There's two different responses. There's people that are kind of low, but then there's other people that is like the incidence of road rage and rage on flights is up.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
so you can go outside or inside with whatever you're feeling. So rage is up, but also depression is up.
Yeah.
So it might be two different things
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, like that guy who
More anxiety, more, yeah.
did you hear about that guy that punched Mike Tyson on a plane?
No.
What an idiot. Yeah. That dude was definitely going through something
Like,
to punch
you
Mike
realize that guy bit a guy's ear off. You might
yeah.
not want to do
Tyson.
that.
The last guy you want to do that too.
Oh my gosh.
But okay, so now that we are done depressing everyone,
Yeah.
how do we,
It's okay.
there is hope.
It's
How do
gonna
we
be
fix
okay.
it? How do we fix it?
You can grow from trauma.
Okay.
You can do this.
How so?
So some good things can happen from this. Well, first of all, okay, acknowledge, yes, I've been through trauma. Got to acknowledge that. Second, you've got to actively chase recovery. Got to take action. And that I know that's tough for people that are feeling on the low end of things, but do what you can. Have self-compassion, but at the same time, take steps to do things that that are good for you, even though you don't feel like it. So things like eat whole foods, even though the processed foods are talking to you, because whole foods will help you balance your moods. The processed foods are going to unstabilize your moods. Be patient with yourself. It takes time to do this, but just something every day. Do a little something every day, something that takes 2 minutes or less towards that. And just take a small step to doing that. So then when it's exercise is like number one for stabilizing your mood.
Yeah.
Like you talk to anyone trained in psychology or therapy, like just getting up and moving your body. You need that blood flow through your brain. You need to be up and moving. So when all you need is 20 seconds of courage to, make that appointment to go to a gym or go walk with a friend or whatever it is, and then do it before you can talk yourself out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we always say the hardest part of going to the gym is getting in the car. That's the hardest
Yeah.
part.
Yeah. So even like you're listening to this podcast and you're like, yeah, I need to take action. I haven't been able to. It's important to do something like right now. So even stand up, do 5 squats. You got to do something right away to take action on that impulse that you're having, that you need to take care of yourself, but you haven't taken action on it. So you do something right away in the moment. Okay, I did 5 squats. That's going to lead to being able to do something more later on. So do something small right away, and that'll help you do something bigger later on. Yeah. So that's for the people that are having trouble taking action.
Yeah. So that's a great strategy. Ride the wave.
Yeah.
When you feel like, oh man, I need to do something, you have that feeling of like,
You gotta do it.
I need to. What can I do?
something now.
Just whatever it is, like, just do it.
Right. And just take the plunge. It's easy to talk yourself out of things because you do get cold feet. You're like, oh, I'm going to sign up for this race. And if you don't log in and register for it, you're not going to do the race.
Yeah.
You're not going to do
Yeah.
it. So yeah, make yourself accountable for it. Tell someone else about it. Get someone else helping you. Involve other people in the thing that you're trying to do. Like, okay, I know I need to go walking. Then get a walking partner. Or tell someone I'm going to go walk every day. Ask me in 3 days if I went for that walk.
Yeah.
Like, get some accountability. Get some
Yeah.
help. You can't do it by yourself. You cannot recover from the pandemic by yourself.
Right.
It's going to involve other people.
Yeah. It has to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like any
absolutely.
trauma.
Any trauma.
You know?
Any trauma. Can't do it by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, I guess it's kind of two sides of the same coin, but getting outside.
Yeah.
Getting outside into the sunlight. Again, doesn't have to be anything crazy. If you are an indoor cat and just love spending time inside and don't spend any time outside, just take 5 minutes. Just go outside, go read for 5 minutes out in the sun. So, it doesn't have to be exercise. You don't have to walk in it. Just go spend time outside.
Get some
sunlight.
Go into your backyard. If you're a person
Yeah.
that's feeling, anxious,
Yeah.
then go in your backyard. That'll be your first step.
Yep. Yeah. And then gradually build upon that. And then I know I always am just constantly saying this, but just limiting screen time,
Yeah.
just
Start limiting
limit the
that.
screen time, start setting boundaries with yourself in that area.
Yeah.
Start small. If you're someone who spends 3, 4, 5 hours a day, staring at a screen, try to just cut it down.
Yeah.
Try to say, okay, like instead of 4 hours, and try, 3 hours and 45 minutes. Start with something super, super manageable, something
Yeah.
super, super doable, and just sort of gradually kind of whittle that down and replace that time with maybe it's something like, hey, instead of 4 hours, let me try 3 hours and 45 minutes, and then I'm spend 15 minutes outside.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of the 4 hour, something that can kind of take the place of that.
Yeah, that's the number one thing that people, like my clients will, whenever I suggest something like that, they're very resistant to it. Like, oh, that is not going to happen. But I do have a client that successfully weaned herself off of using her tablet to wind down before bedtime.
Yay, there you go.
Yes, I have a success story. So we didn't start by cutting it down alone. We started by adding something else in. So I said, all right, before you get on your tablet, listen to like a meditation. So
All right, sorry about that, guys. So our recorder ran out of batteries. So picking up where we left off. Where did we leave off? I think we were talking about replacement
Screen time.
subtraction by addition, right? You were talking about
yes. So instead of just saying, don't scroll on your tablet when you go to bed, like that was unthinkable, right? So we just had her listening to a meditation before. So she had full permission to scroll on her tablet, but she listened to the meditation before. And over time, she would fall asleep during the meditation and ended up not using the tablet after a while.
Nice.
So
Look at that.
So, I mean, that applies to food too. Like, do the thing before the thing. So you're just like, yeah, I have full permission to eat the donut, but first I'm going to eat this or drink this water or whatever the thing is. And then half the time you end up not doing the other things. So it's a really good trick. It's a really good hack for not for getting rid of bad habits.
Yeah.
So anyway, reducing screen time, this can really help because I think everyone is very resistant to reducing their screen time. So just replace it with something. Replace it with a walk. Replace it with board game. Replace it with something.
Yeah.
You got
Subtraction by addition.
Have a plan for, well, what am I going to be doing instead of that screen time? Yeah, and it needs to be something that you actually like.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. You can't force yourself to do something. That'd be that. Yeah. That's a recipe for.
It needs to be something you really like. Like, oh, maybe I'll go to the gym instead of watching another hour of Netflix.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then on that subject, sleep is huge for your mental health. So if you are trying to recover from anything, and everyone is trying to recover from the pandemic, find a way, start hacking your sleep. And any sleep you can get before midnight is worth double of any sleep you get after midnight. So an hour of sleep before midnight is worth 2 hours after midnight.
Interesting.
It's a time saver.
Yeah, it's efficiency.
Yeah, it is.
That's interesting.
But it's huge for mental health. It helps your brain needs that time to. There's a ton of research on this, but your brain works out a lot of problems while you're sleeping, and it works out much better. Even if it's the same 7 hours of sleep, midnight to 7 a.m. is not going to do near as much as 11 to 6 or 10 to 5.
Wow.
So you're going to get a lot more.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah. So, yeah, basically, get out there, exercise, subtraction by addition,
Yeah.
get some sleep. It's just, the way to recover is to be honest, it's not a secret.
It's the same thing, but you might have to be like a little more intentional about it, a little more firm about it. Like, tell your family, look, this is really something we have to take seriously, especially if your tank was running low before the pandemic.
Right.
You're already using lots of screen time, already stressed out, already having lots of family problems. And then the pandemic then your tank is absolutely empty now. And you need to really start chasing recovery.
Yeah.
Get serious about it.
Yeah. Yep. Well, there you have it, guys. So hopefully this was insightful. Post-pandemic malaise, we're all going through it. We've all experienced it.
Yeah.
But that's how you can get out of it.
Yeah.
You can get through this.
There's a way out.
All right.
Yeah.
We will talk to you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.